Mixing with Mike. Ask Mixing with Mike. Here's the first question. I'm an amateur self taught music producer and I create pretty much everything I know by instinct. So some of what I do is a bit hit or miss. I am quite good at communicating my musical ideas onto software now, but I'm still really struggling with achieving that professional sound I so crave. I sometimes spend hours listening to the same track I've created over and over again, trying to figure out what is missing. I'm hoping you can help with any tips that would be greatly appreciated. Also any time-saving mixing tips that would be appreciated, as I would love to dedicate all my time to music production, but other areas of my life keep vying for my attention. Of course, I will always make time for music, but my hectic life is stressing me out. Please help me. Now, this is actually a very, very common thing, and it's really hard to put a tip or simple idea into answering a question like this because what I think is important to understand is that the music production is a skill, a professional skill entirely into itself, and it is a very broad question. And you could be a great music producer and a horrible engineer, a horrible mix engineer. And you could be an amazing mix engineer and a horrible producer. And each one is almost a lifetime study. People who are really, really, really good mix engineers, they do it a lot. So there's no like plug in or there's no quick idea. But I think the thing is that you have to understand there are just some basic principles. And I think the things that can help you the most is really comparing your work to at the same time to like a template mix or what I call mix or production templating. So you write a song, and maybe that song is inspired by another artist or inspired by some other production that you really love. Now, this is not about copying the production. You still do all your own creative work, but when you get to the mix, if you're going for a certain sonic character, a certain sound, then you reference the mix. So you play it in the background and then you compare your mix to that. And so what happens is as you're making adjustments like equalization and compression and effects and other things, you have a basis for comparison so that what you're really doing is not so much matching up the frequencies, although that will be part of the work, but you'll be trying to match up the feeling or the vibe for what it is that you're doing. So, in other words, really what you're doing is you want it to be as exciting as the production that you're listening to that you think is exciting. It also is very easy if you're not referencing, especially if you don't have a lot of experience. If you're not referencing to other tracks, then it's very easy to get into this thing where everything is all of a sudden really bassy and you don't realize it until the next day, or everything is really, really super bright and harsh and you don't realize it until the next day when you have fresh ears, because your brain is constantly adjusting your hearing mechanism to what it is that you're listening to. So the quickest way that you can learn and dramatically improve your mixing skills and even production skills is to compare or A/B your work constantly with whatever to bring up the same excitement level as to what production that you really like. So you take your work and that forces you to be more aggressive maybe with the way that you go about your processing, and it also creates like a template or a guide. You will never get all the frequencies exactly the same, nor do you want to. But you want it to be basically in the ballpark, right? You want to try to match some of the imaging and depth, the effects maybe with the reverb, not duplicating them, but again, trying to get it so that it feels like it's in a similar category. Like when you play them side by side, they have a similar vibe or feel to them. So assuming that all of your music production work is actually really good, then this is a quick way of kind of getting you closer, or at least by that quick comparison you could say, oh yeah, I'm too bright. Oh, at least you could look at technical aspects much faster and make corrections that actually work. So that's my quickest, easiest answer for that, but it is a very broad question, right? So all right, move on to the next one. Next up for asking mix ask mixing with Mike. um, Next question. I'm sure I'm not alone when I see these e-newsletters that you send out. I'd like to get a better sense of what's happening on the students' end of the equation. I mean, in the video links, it is just you wowing everybody with your engineering skills, but the students aren't really learning anything. Now, this is actually kind of an interesting thing because I get the majority emails I get are have questions that are more specific to techniques or things, And this is one that is actually, I brought it out because I love challenging questions, and I love when people send me stuff that challenges what I do or what's going on, because that helps me to understand and make what I do better, right? So I always look at myself, try to look at it from an honest lens or from an honest way. So are the students really learning anything from the stuff that I do? Now, the feedback that I get tells me that yes, absolutely. But, there are also many people who don't send me things, so it's hard to tell. Now, the real important thing to understand here in creating the school and the newsletters and the announcements and sending out the videos and things like that, it's not about me. I provide information for people, and then it's up to you to absorb or get something out of it. In other words, I can create a school that technically describes everything you would need to know to do mixing, but ultimately you have to watch the videos, you have to absorb the information correctly, and you have to apply it correctly. And that's something that is very difficult to do from afar. The only way that I've found it to be really 100% effective with people, and even then there's some stretch with that, is working with students privately, because I can actually go into the very specific detail of what that person's work is and where they're going off, this way or that way. Maybe they're misunderstanding a lesson. So I try to be as clear as I can when I teach the classes and I design the lessons, and I try to be as meticulous as I possibly can. Part of the wow factor is also being entertaining, because otherwise it's just a textbook full of facts, which is going to bore the snot at everybody, and nobody's going to want to listen to that. So I try to give good examples. I try to, throw in some stories and make some fun things. And that's part about, should be entertaining, right? You should really enjoy and have fun doing what you do. I mean, I love teaching more than anything. I love bringing out the information that I have and giving it to people. And I really, ask me anything and I will tell you anything. I don't hold anything back about what I know. I'm never afraid. I'm not hiding anything, because that's something that, as much as I could teach you, the only way that you're really going to absorb it is by actually doing it yourself and then seeing what it is. So, as well as I could design a mixing course, for example, it's only successful to the degree that the person who takes the course applies themselves, because I can't virtually, through the playback of the video, follow and kind of prod the student along if they're slacking, or point out when they're making a mistake. I can only do that if I get feedback from them. And usually the best way to do that, I've found the most effective way is by doing it through private instruction. So even if you go through a mixing course and then, every now and again you throw in a quick lesson and say, gee, I was doing all this stuff. Tell me what's working, what's not working, what I could do better. And that's actually part of what Mixing with Mike is all about. Send me your multi-track productions. And then, you bring it in, I open it up and I point out what you're doing right, what could be done better, what could be done differently. How that's the whole idea of the school. So it's only as effective as to your level of participation, right? And that's really the key there. So there's our Ask Mixing with Mike. It's harder. Maybe I should change it to Ask Mike on Mixing with Mike. I don't know. I have to work on that. Anyway, so there you go. There's the our question number 2.